on to you. Breakfast is Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk, Tech Talk with Matthew Dixon.
Do you reckon will be the best Christmas gift or the biggest Christmas gift out of, say, Access? What are you selling?
In terms of technology wise,
Yeah.
obviously lots of kids going into, say, year 7 or whenever parents decide it's the right time, their first phone is pretty exciting.
Year 7, that's late.
Well, a lot of parents are trying to hold out to higher school. There's huge pressure from the kids, but that's what a lot of kids or a lot of parents try and hold out to. And I can still remember we looked at a video the other day of my kids getting their first Christmas present, the age of 6 months old, so their first mobile phone.
I've seen a kid being pushed in a stroller with a mobile.
Look, that's probably the biggest present we see kids for that.
Yeah.
And then what we see a lot of are just little accessories, like it might be wireless headphones, for example, or wireless chargers, or just some of the accessories, because it's hard to buy a mobile phone for someone because you need to know their particular choices, and it's really easy to buy a phone for someone and say, there you go, there's a phone, it's on a plan, you've got to pay for it from here on in.
Yeah. Can you get a phone that will suit everybody? Is there a universal phone or not?
The great thing about the society we live in, Richard, is we're all individuals, and so that's like the Monty Python scene. I'm an individual. Yeah, so am I.
I'm not. You'll be interested in this, Matty. Western Australia plans to build one of the longest continuous EV networks in the world. It's committed $100 million to a previously put up battery to stabilise the power network. The interesting point is they're part of a suite of measures worth $300 million in WA have announced a part of climate policy with the aspirational aim of achieving net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. I'll get back to that in a minute because you know my feelings about all that. The air above us doesn't stay above us. The whole world has got, India, China, we're going there. The Conservation Council of WA said the policy failed to keep testing cutting pollution. They encourage those to buy EVs. Western Australia government is going to spend $21 million building Australia's longest EV. There are currently 1,500 electric vehicles in WA. 1,500.
There's only 6,217 bought last year in Australia, so WA are going okay.
Yeah, okay. Can you convert a conventional car into an EV?
Yeah, there's a guy that comes along to our monthly group where he's got an old ute, and it's probably a 20 or 30-year-old ute. Probably picked it up from a wreckers for $1,000, and he bought an electric engine. It probably cost him $5,000 for the electric engine.
Yeah.
He got some old batteries, and it's only got a short range. He just uses it to run around town with. Probably only goes 60 kilometres in range, but it's fascinating. You open the bonnet, and there's nothing there. There's an electric engine, and that's about it. So there are people who do. He's just done it himself. He's done it backyard, but there's people who do professional ones.
Can you get electric lightning striking if you're driving an EV through a storm?
No more than normal. Like, it's still a car. It's still a piece of metal. It's still got rubber tyres. So there's no difference from that perspective. Some people get the whole thing. I've had people say, can you charge it when it's raining? Well, yeah, they actually design it so you can plug it in while it's raining. So there's nothing unusual like that. It's just a different power source.
At home, can you charge it at home?
Yeah, I've got 3 and they all charge up at home. Most of the time it's convenient.
Is it?
Use off-peak electricity, it's quite cheap. Or use solar panels. I've got 10 kilowatts of solar panels, so yeah, you can use it at home, charge it when you're out and about. It's but that network they're building in WA is quite sensible because, again, different governments around the world have approached it differently. Some have given subsidies, but that doesn't always sit comfortably with people when you're being handed money to buy an electric vehicle. Yeah. But building a network that makes it easier to drive them, there's common sense in that.
Can you move that one around because you're getting fuzzy on that one.
Am I?
Yeah.
I don't want to get fuzzy at my age.
That's better. Zoom. What is Zoom?
Yeah, Zoom was never designed to do what it's doing now.
Well, the bloke who invented it, he invented it some time ago. He's surprised at how it's been taken up.
Well,
he's come out to say, no, it's not meant to be like this.
That's right. He's actually said that this was never the design of Zoom. Zoom was always a way to get a few people together in a convenient fashion, and we expected it to have a small amount of usage. But for whatever reason, and there's lots of different solutions to the Zoom concept, which is just video conferencing. There are a whole range of solutions. For whatever reason, Zoom seemed to be the one that was picked up by so many people, probably because it's easy to use, which has also got a downside in that the security is fairly lax. Yeah. And you probably saw at the beginning of the pandemic, there were lots of cases of Zoom bombing where people would come in, comedians would jump in, and you'd be in a classroom and you'd be working away at some schoolwork, and next thing you know, there'd be a comedian there saying, hold on, what's pi r squared? I'm not sure if I've eaten my pie for the day, or whatever they might have come up with. But then some things happening where there'd be security briefings in cabinet, or some generals sitting around talking about some strategies, and next thing you know, there's some comedian popping up on a Zoom meeting there, and they're going, hold on, this isn't really what we're designed to do.
How does that happen?
Well, one of the problems with a Zoom meeting is, and again, they have changed the security. So to be fair to Zoom, they have highlighted this area and said, we've got to make it better. But most of the time with a Zoom meeting, if you had a copy of a link to get into a meeting, you could just jump into a meeting, but you can also guess part of that. When you see a link sometimes, you go, I wonder what happened if I changed those 3 characters there. I wonder if that would give me another oh, look, I'm into another meeting now. So there's different ways to get into it.
So there's no security.
Well, there is now, and that's the thing. That's what made it easy, because the more security layers you put on things, the more complicated you make a password, for example, the more steps you've got to go through to get into something, the more complicated it becomes. And people say, oh, I'm not using that ABC teleconferencing or video conferencing. It's too complicated. Oh, Zoom's easy. You just click and you're in. I'll use that. So that's why Zoom became so popular, because it was the easiest to use, which also meant that people weren't going through a whole bunch of security protocols. So again, Zoom have identified that, and they've rectify that to a certain extent.
Chinese bloke by the name of Eric Wan, who's 50 years of age. That's all.
Sorry, the founder. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Zoom.
Yeah. And again, when he started that, and obviously it's not something that he just did yesterday, when he started out saying, I'm going to build video conferencing, I'm sure lots of his friends says, you're an idiot. Video conferencing isn't taking off. Nowhere that's going to take off. It's going to be a little tiny niche program, and that's it. But obviously they didn't plan on a pandemic coming along, and that changed the landscape of the world.
Can you use Zoom on your smartphone?
Yeah, you can use Zoom on your smartphone.
What about your smart TV?
On your TV, you can actually Zoom it to your TV. You can do it from a PC, do it from a Mac. But all of those are very similar in what you do. I mean, a lot of people just use things like FaceTime. If you've got an Apple phone, FaceTime you can do, and they've made it so you can have up to 32 people on a FaceTime call. Now, obviously, if you think about a mobile phone and 32 faces on there, they're pretty small, but it's clever enough to have you and the person that's talking at the time go larger and everyone else goes smaller. So if you're talking, your picture becomes bigger so everyone can see the focus on that particular person. So that's an easy way to do it as well. You just pick up your mobile phone. As long as the other person's got an Apple, you do a FaceTime call, you can keep adding people into a FaceTime call.
32?
Yeah, I know. And most people don't do it with 32. They might do it with...
I don't know 32
Well, that's a problem too.
Isn't it? 32 in a call.
Yeah.
Imagine doing that in your car.
Well,
hands-free.
Probably wouldn't recommend doing it
But
in
you
your
can
car.
hands-free it.
Yeah, you could, but I probably wouldn't recommend that as a good, safe method to do it. But you've got some Zoom calls, for example, that have got hundreds of people in them because it might be a university lecture. Yeah. So you've got the lecturer and lots of the students there. Now, they're not all try and participate in an open conference, but they've got the ability to ask a question if they need to. So it's certainly changed the landscape. I can remember the TV show 24, very popular.
Oh, yeah.
And Cisco was a major sponsor. They had lots of branding, when they'd have a telephone they'd pick up and they'd zoom in on the telephone and you'd see the Cisco brand. They used a thing called Cisco Telepresence, which was this thing that was going to take over the world with video conferencing, but it didn't.
No, it didn't. 20, that's Kiefer Sutherland.
Yes, and that's about 12 years ago, and that's when, this is going to really take over, but it didn't. But they didn't have a pandemic in 2008.
Matthew Dickinson, you're a strange one, I tell you. 8 o'clock.